Bhaktavan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 16. Today we are going to read text 6. Does anyone remember what we read last time?
Last time we read that Angira Muni and Sri Narad Muni were pacifying Citraketu with a transcendental knowledge because he was lamenting a lot. And we are not taught that we are the soul. So we get entangled more and more in this material world. And all we are taught is that how to enjoy more and more, and no one speaks that we are soul and not the body. And want us to be able to get out of this illusion and consider that where you have come from and what you are going to do and why we have to lament here, and try to analyze that you will not feel bad and anything that is not in direct service to Krishna. And it is not eternal. Like this, this material world is not eternal. And that the thing is temporary here, that everything is temporary here. And he is, and then later they are imitating him. And then he also said that you chant and this mantra, and then you can come on from same platform as the Shiva and the demigods are free from the duality. So they were giving him they gave Citraketu Maharaj a mantra, and they asked him to chant that you will come on the same level as Lord Shiva and the other demigods. And different life is based on the karmas. Like the different lives that we get, they are based on our karmas. And for short time, temporary relationships are there in this world. They are based on the illusion. And we are the soul and not the body. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that stay where you are and just chant Hare Krishna. And we are under the control of modes, and we are not free in any circumstances. We are not free. We always act according to under the modes of material nature. And Citraketu is seeing that Sankarshna's Lord face to face. After he has been doing all this, he can see that. And then Narad Muni brought the dead son alive. And then he explains, as the soul left body, it's dead. And now when the soul comes back, it can speak. So body is a machine. And Prabhupada explains, therefore the body is a machine. And it's more upon material energy. And we are spiritual energy. So inside it and the body, energy belongs to Krishna. And we are forced, that we cannot choose to enter the body as we wish. And we are forced to leave the body. We are just forced to enter, and we are forced to leave the body. We does not have a choice, or we cannot decide what to do. And no living entity is this. Every living entity is the son of Supreme Lord. And because we want to enjoy, we are given different bodies. In a way, we want to enjoy this material world. And like we wear different dresses, it was compared that as like we wear different dresses, that is how the body is also a dress that he wear. The different souls, that the different bodies that we get in is like different clothes that we wear. And he comes back to life. The son that was dead, he comes back to life, but he's asking, I have been in so many different species of life. So in which birth were you my parents? As if he has left his body, so he don't know. And there is no attachment. They also mention about the attachment, that he was not attached to the body, and he was just asking them that, okay, so like from which birth you're my parents? And no relationships are permanent here. And Prabhupada says that Citraketu could be happy that he was his energy, as the energy makes us lament. Like as the enemy, and there was a last that Citraketu must have been his enemy, because the enemies who take birth and then they make us lament like our children. And this is happening as we are bound by these three modes of nature, and we are not able to understand this. That's why we need to hear, and we need to chant again and again. So as the situation arises, we accept the same on as our family, friend, or situation keeps changing. So like we just need to keep on chanting, so that when such situations come, we are prepared and we can accept it and we can move on and we can be Krishna conscious every time. So there was just few things that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, Citraketu, Prabhupada was saying not that the sun was his enemy, but he was saying that he could have considered that maybe he was his enemy. That's why he caused him lamentation.
Yeah,
Prabhupada was
sorry.
mentioning it, the purport. Yeah, no, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, then let's continue. Yatha vastuni panyani
यथा
यथा वस्तूनि
ज्ञाने
पन्यानि
hemadini tatastataha
हेमादीनि
हेमादीततः
ततस्ततः
paryatanti nareshva evam
पर्यतन्ति नरेष्व एवम्
एवम्
jivo yonishu kartrishu.
जीवो योनि
जीवो योनिषु कर्तृषु.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Just as gold and other commodities are continually transferred from one place to another in due course of purchase and sale, so the living entity, as a result of his fruitive activities, wanders throughout the entire universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life by one kind of father after another. So Prabhupada is saying that, yeah, he was his enemy. It has already been explained that Citraketu's son was his enemy in a past life and had now appeared as his son just to give him more severe pain. So here, Neha is then corrected. Prabhupada is saying, yeah, he was his enemy. Indeed, the untimely death of the son caused severe lamentation for the father. One may put forward the argument, if the king's son was his enemy, how could the king have so much affection for him? In answer, the example is given that when someone's wealth falls into the hands of his enemy, the money becomes the enemy's friend. Then the enemy can use it for his own purposes. Indeed, he can even use it to harm its previous owner. Therefore, the money belongs neither to the one party nor to the other. The money is always money, but in different situations, it can be used as an enemy or a friend. So here, what's being explained is money or gold, it changes. We can buy and sell gold, so it changes. It goes from one person's hand to another. So Prabhupada is explaining why the son was his enemy, because he caused him so much suffering. That's why he's his enemy. That point being taken. And Prabhupada is explaining that if gold is transferred to the enemy, then the enemy can use it to harm the person, So as explained in Bhagavad Gita, it is not by any father or mother that the living entity is given his birth. The living entity is a complete separate identity from the so-called father and mother. So we get attached. We are in the material world. We are, in these bodies. We are thinking we are the bodies. But in truth, actually, the soul, the father, mother is Krishna. We are all parts and parcels of Krishna. By the laws of nature, the living entity is forced to enter the semen of a father and be injected into the womb of the mother. He is not in control of selecting what kind of father he will accept. Prakriti kriyamanani. The laws of nature force him to go to different fathers and mothers, just like a consumer commodity that is purchased and sold. Therefore, the so-called relationship of father and son is an arrangement of Prakriti or nature. It has no meaning, and therefore it is called illusion. So no meaning, why? Because what it means is because it's temporary. It's temporary. It's only for the present. The relationship is only for the present. The same living entity sometimes takes shelter of an animal father and mother, and sometimes a human father and mother. Sometimes he accepts a father and mother among the birds, And sometimes he accepts a demigod father and mother. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Vijay, harassed life after life by the laws of nature. The living entity wanders throughout the entire universe in different planets and different species of life. Somehow or other, if he is fortunate enough, he comes in touch with a devotee who reforms his entire life. Then the living entity goes back home, back to Godhead. So Lord Chaitanya is saying we are wandering throughout the universe. Sometimes we are going to one planet, sometimes to another planet, sometimes in one body, sometimes another body. You know, we are thinking we are this body, the present body that we are in, but actually we are wandering. But if by some good fortune we can come in touch with a devotee, then he can give us bhakti and we can go back home, back to Godhead. Therefore it is said, Janme Janme Sabe Pita Mata Paya. Krishna Guru Nahi Mile Baja Hariye. In the transmigration of the soul through different bodies, everyone in every form of life, be it human, animal, tree, or demigod, gets a father and mother. This is not very difficult. The difficulty is to obtain a bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. So we all have father and mother. That's how we come to this material world. That's why we have this body, material body. But not all of us can get spiritual master and Krishna, a bona fide spiritual master, a true representative of Krishna. Therefore, the duty of a human being is to capture the opportunity to come in touch with Krishna's representative, the bona fide spiritual master. Under the guidance of the spiritual master, the spiritual father, one can return home back to Godhead. Otherwise, we keep wandering here in the higher and lower planets and higher and lower species. By the grace of the bona fide spiritual master, we can go back home. Nityasya arthasya sambandho
Nityasarthasya sambandho
hi anityo drishyate nrishu.
nityo drishyate nrishu
Yavad yasya hi sambandho
yavad yasya hi sambandho
mamatvam tavad eva hi.
mamatvam tavad eva hi.
A few living entities are born in the human species and others are born as animals. Although both are living entities, their relationships are impermanent. An animal may remain in the custody of a human being for some time, and then the same animal may be transferred to the possession of other human beings. As soon as the animal goes away, the former proprietor no longer has a sense of ownership. As long as the animal is in his possession, he certainly has an affinity for it. But as soon as the animal is sold, the affinity is lost. Aside from the fact that the soul transmigrates from one body to another, even in this life, the relationships between living entities are impermanent, as exemplified in this verse. The son of Citraketu was named Harshashok, or a jubilation and lamentation. The living entity is certainly eternal, but because he's covered by a temporary dress, the body, his eternity is not observed. So we, the soul, are eternal, but we are inside the body and we are thinking we are the body and we keep changing these bodies. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara. The embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. Thus, the bodily dress is impermanent. So even this body of ours, when we were small, we had a different body. When we were just born, we certainly had a different body. Then growing up, as young children, we had different bodies. Then as adolescent, we had different bodies. And then as young people, we had different bodies. Then again, body keeps changing. So the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age. Thus, the bodily dress is impermanent. The living entity, however, is permanent. as an animal is transferred from one owner to another. The living entity, who was the son of Citraketu, lived as his son for some time. But as soon as he was transferred to another body, the affectionate relationship was broken. As stated in the example given in the previous verse, when one has a commodity in his hands, he considers it his, but as soon as it is transferred, it becomes someone else's commodity. Then one no longer has a relationship with it. He has no affection for it, nor does he lament for it. So, for example, here they are speaking of the animal. Somebody may have an animal. Till the time they own the animal, they are affectionate. Then they sell the animal, then the affection is gone. There's no lamentation and no affection.
Hare Krishna, Shimpaji. So what they're trying to say is that until you are in this body, you are attached with all the relationships connected to this body, right? And then as soon as you move on to another body, then you just forget, like how the Harsh and Shoka forgot about everything. So they're just explaining it more with an example of an animal, right? The same concept.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, because he left the body, so his connection with the body finished. So his connection with everyone who was related with the body also finished. So his affection for everyone related to the body also finished. Evam yoni gato jiva.
Evam gato jiva
Sa nityo nirahankritaha.
sanityo nirahankritah
Yavad yatropalabhyeta.
Yavat
Yatropalabhyeta
Tavat svatvam hitasya tat.
Tavat
tavat svatvam hitasya tat.
Even though one living entity becomes connected with another because of a relationship based on bodies that are perishable, the living entity is eternal. Actually, it is the body that is born or lost, not the living entity. One should not accept that the living entity takes birth or dies. The living being actually has no relationship with so-called fathers and mothers. As long as he appears as the son of a certain father and mother, and as a result of his past fruitive activities, he has a connection with the body given by that father and mother. Thus, he falsely accepts himself as their son and acts affectionately. After he dies, however, the relationship is finished. Under these circumstances, one should not be falsely involved with jubilation and lamentation. So, this verse is speaking more clearly of what we just spoke about, that the relationship exists as long as the soul is in the body. Once the soul leaves the body, because the relationship is all finished, the affection is also finished. And so the living entity actually is not the body, but the soul. So when the living entity lives within the material body, he falsely thinks that he's the body, although actually he's not. That's what, right? We are in the body, we are thinking, I'm this person, I belong to this. This is my name, this is my community, my nationality. So we identify ourselves with the body. But actually, we are not the body, we are the soul. His relationship with his body and his so-called father and mother are false, illusory conceptions. So why false, illusory conceptions? Because they are not our true identity. They're temporary, only for the present. These illusions continue as long as one is not enlightened about the situation of the living entity. So because we are in illusion, we accept everyone that is related to the body as our own. But in actuality, we are the soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Esha nityo vyava sukshma.
Esha nitya vyavaha sukshma
Esha sarva ashraya swadrik.
Isha Sarvashraya Swadrika
Ashrayasodrik
Atma Maya Guner Vishwam
Atmamaya Guner Vishwa
Atmanam Srijate Prabhu.
Atmanam
Atmanam Srijate Prabhu.
The living entity is eternal and imperishable because he actually has no beginning and no end. He never takes birth or dies. He's the basic principle of all types of bodies, yet he does not belong to the bodily category. The living being is so sublime that he is equal in quality to the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, because he is extremely small, he is prone to be illusioned by the external energy, and thus he creates various bodies for himself according to his different desires. In this verse, the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda, simultaneous one and difference, is described. The living entity is eternal, Nitya, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the difference is that the Supreme Lord is the greatest, no one being equal to or greater than him, whereas the living entity is Sukshma or extremely small. So how do we understand this Achintya Bheda Abheda? What does it mean?
It means that
Simultaneously one and different.
we are part and parcel of Krishna, but we are different quantitatively. Qualitatively, we are also Sachidanand souls, but we are different. He's the supreme. We are Anu. We are small part and parcel of his. We are small and he's the supreme. That is what they're trying to say here. Is it?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Deepika, you were saying something?
Yeah, the same thing. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it. So living entity is eternal. Okay, yeah. The Shastra recommends that the magnitude of the living entity is 1/10,000 the size of the tip of a hair. The Supreme Lord is all-pervading. Andantarastha Parmanu Jayantrastham. Relatively, if the living entity is accepted as the smallest, there should naturally be inquiry about the greatest. The greatest is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the smallest is the living entity. So it's natural, no, for us. Or if there is heat, then there is cold, right? And there is light, there's darkness. So if there's the smallest, then there is the greatest too. So the greatest is the Supreme Lord. Another peculiar characteristic of the jiva is that he becomes covered by Maya. So because we are so tiny, we get covered. Although we are the superior energy, we are called the superior energy. Material energy is called inferior energy. Then why do we get covered by this material energy? Because our size is, we are very tiny. That's why we get covered by her. Krishna never gets covered by Maya. He's unlimited. Just like the cloud can never cover the sun. So Atma Maya Gune, he's prone to being covered by the Supreme Lord's illusory energy. The living entity is responsible for his conditional life in the material world, and therefore he is described as Prabhu, the master. If he likes, he can come to this material world, and if he likes, he can return home back to Godhead. Because he wanted to enjoy this material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gave him a material body through the agency of the material energy. So we can see it's our desire to enjoy the material world. That's the reason we are here in the material world. Krishna fulfills our desires through the agency of the material energy. She's an agent to help us fulfill our material desires. As the Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita 18:61, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddesha arjuna tishtati, brahmayan sarva bhutani rantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. The Supreme Lord gives the living entity a chance to enjoy in this material world as he desires. But he openly expresses his own desire that the living entity give up all material aspirations, fully surrender unto him, and return home back to Godhead. So Krishna, he gives us a free will, the choice to be with Krishna, to be in the material world. We choose the material world. Yet Krishna, time and time again, comes himself or sends his confidential associates to give us this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, that give up this infatuation with the material energy. You are not this body, you are spirit soul. Come back to this, to the eternal spiritual world. So that is Krishna's desire. You can see Krishna's desire when we are studying Bhagavad Gita. He's telling us all, come back home, back to Godhead. The living entity is the smallest, Sukshma. Jiva Goswami says in that this connection that the living entity within the body is extremely difficult for materialistic scientists to find. Although we understand from authorities that the living entity is within the body is different from the living entity. So just as in material knowledge, every field of knowledge, we go to the expert. For our medical condition, we go to the doctor. For technical, we go to the technologist. For law-related things, we go to the lawyers. So similarly, for spiritual matters, we go to the spiritual teachers, the spiritual guides, to the scriptures. And the scriptures are telling us that we are not the body, we are the spirit soul. Krishna himself is saying this also in Bhagavad Gita. Questions, comments?
Here, Shilpaji, they are giving this whole Bhagavad Gita knowledge to him, right? For making him understand, because he's lamenting, and like as we all also know that when somebody dies, it's very difficult for us to come out of it. So they're just trying to explain him all that, right?
That's right. I think Harsh, the small boy, is speaking all this, right?
The boy
sure.
is speaking.
Yeah, I think so. That's
Because
right.
in the previously he asked that which life father or mother you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then he's speaking all this.
Okay. Okay. So that means that Angira Rishi and Nashri Narad Muni are also listening this knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
That's right.
present there listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we started with 6, no? Today. Okay, let's see. This is chapter 16. Because the boy started speaking, right? By
Yeah.
the mystic power, the boy. And he said, so the boy was speaking. Yeah.
Okay.
The boy was being speaking.
The boy is giving this knowledge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just finished this. Yeah, we finished this one. Right? Okay.
So that means the
So
boy is also very knowledgeable,
yeah.
because this is a very, very deep and knowledge. Not everybody is supposed to know this.
Yeah. Well, not supposed to. We are all supposed to know it, but not
We are
all of
supposed
us
to
know it.
know it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Each of us is supposed to know it, but we don't know it.
Mm. Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I had a question. Now that the boy who is just a living entity speaking in the body, so he's speaking as a living entity. So is that the reason he is in knowledge and he's not conditioned?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So
You mean,
because
how does he
now
get this knowledge? You mean, why does he have the knowledge?
so we understand that we all know, but we forget because we are in the body, we are conditioned, right?
That's right.
So is that because he is now speaking as a living entity in the body? That's why he is in knowledge? I mean, if we have passed and if we are as a living entity, not in the body, then we are in knowledge. Does that mean that? And when we
No,
come in the body, no. Okay. Okay.
no, because that's how we are taking up other different bodies also, right? Because
Okay.
the subtle body is always there. This is probably the
Okay.
mercy of Narad Muni, Angira Muni.
That living
Yeah.
entity can speak. Okay. That
And
Harshoka
that
is speaking now.
Harshok is
Okay.
speaking, and that he's speaking of knowledge. He's
Yeah.
giving so much knowledge. Is probably the mercy of Narad Muni.
Okay.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Nahi asyasti priya kaschin.
Nahi asyasti priya kaschin.
Na priya swaparopi va.
Na
Na
apriyato
priya
pare apiva.
Eka sarvadhyam drishta.
Ekah sarvadiyam
Sarvadhyam
drishta.
drishta.
Kartrinam gunadoshayo.
Kartanam
Kartrinam
gunadosayoho.
gunadoshayoho.
For this living entity, no one is dear, nor is anyone unfavorable. He makes no distinction between that which is his own and that which belongs to anyone else. He is one without a second. In other words, he is not affected by friends and enemies, well-wishers or mischief mongers. He is only an observer, a witness of the different qualities of men. As explained in the previous verse, the living entity has the same qualities as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he has them in minute quantities because he's a small particle, sukshma, whereas the Supreme Lord is all-pervading and great. For the Supreme Lord, there are no friends, enemies, or relatives, for he is completely free from all the disqualifications of ignorance that characterize the conditioned souls. On the other hand, he is extremely kind and favorable to his devotees, and he is not at all satisfied with persons who are envious of his devotees. So here Prabhupada is explaining that we are part and parcel of God. God is unlimited, we are tiny. So because we are part and parcel, so we have his same qualities, although to a tiny degree, minute degree. So the Lord, for him, there are no friends, enemies, relatives. Then we may say, oh, how? But we see he has loving relationships with his devotees. He's killing the demons. What's happening? Yeah, but he feels equally towards everyone because everyone belongs to him. He's not covered by our, um, what do you say? He's not covered by ignorance. His consciousness is never material based on body. He's always in his own spiritual consciousness. So, as the Lord Himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita 9:29, Soham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshyosti na priya ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya maite teshu chapi aham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So, just like a father treats all his children equally. One child may want to have good relation with the father. Another child may want to go away from the father. So, but the father loves each child equally, although his dealing with the children may be different. As the children want to what degree they want to have the relationship with him, to that degree, automatically, the father has that kind of dealing. So the devotees, they want to have the relationship with the Supreme Lord. The Lord also has very dear relationship with them. The Supreme Lord has no enemy or friend, but he's inclined toward a devotee who always engages in his devotional service. Similarly, elsewhere in the Gita 16.19, the Lord says, Tan aham dvishta kruran sam sareshu naradaman shipami asch ajasram ashubhan asurishva eva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. The Lord is extremely antagonistic toward those who are envious of his devotees. To protect his devotees, the Lord sometimes has to kill their enemies. For example, to protect Prahlad Maharaj, the Lord had to kill his enemy Hiranyakashipu, although Hiranyakashipu attained salvation because of being killed by the Lord. So the Lord, he comes to protect his devotees. And so here he protects Prahlad and he kills Hiranyakashipu. But he is also good to Hiranyakashipu because Hiranyakashipu gets liberation. Otherwise, how would he get liberated? But because he's being killed by the Lord, he gets liberation. So it's not easy to get liberation, no? So we can see how he is equal. God, the Supreme Lord, he's equal to everyone. So since the Lord is the witness of everyone's activities, he witnesses the actions of the enemies of his devotees and he's inclined to punish them. In other cases, however, he simply witnesses what the living entities do and gives the result of one sinful or pious action. So the Supreme Lord, he witnesses all our activities. He is in our heart, so he understands our desires. And he understands that one is trying to harm his devotee. Then the Lord takes action. He wants to personally protect his devotee. Yeah. So Prahlad Maharaj, because he was on the liberated platform, he was saying also to his friends that no one is your friend, no one is your enemy. Yeah. Each of us are parts and parcels of Krishna. We are spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna. It's only under the body, because we think we are the body, we are thinking this one is my friend, this one is my enemy. But the liberated soul, he looks at everyone equally. He does not consider anyone that he is my friend, he is my enemy. He's equal to all. He loves everyone, the devotee, because he sees everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. He understands that Krishna loves everyone, so he also loves everyone. Nadata atma hi gunam,
Nadata atma hi gunam,
na dosham na kriya phalam,
na
na
dosham na
dosham na kriya phalam,
udasinavad asina,
udasinavad ashina,
paravaradrigishvara.
Paravaradrak Ishvaraha.
The Supreme Lord Atma, the creator of cause and effect, does not accept the happiness and distress that result from fruitive actions. He is completely independent of having to accept a material body. And because he has no material body, he is always neutral. The living entities, being part and parcel of the Lord, possess his qualities in a minute quantity. Therefore, one should not be affected by lamentation. The conditioned soul has friends and enemies. He is affected by the good qualities and the faults of his position. The Supreme Lord, however, is always transcendental. So this is the difference between us and God. We come under the control of Maya. God never comes under the control of Maya. He's the owner. Maya Devi belongs to him. She follows his orders. Whereas us, we get under the control. So because he is the Ishvara, the supreme controller, he's not affected by duality. It may therefore be said that he sits in the core of everyone's heart as the neutral witness of the causes and effects of one's activities, good and bad. So Krishna says that he is the overseer and the permitter in everyone's heart. He's the Paramatma. He's the witness in our heart. So we should also understand that Udasina, neutral, does not mean that he takes no action. Rather, it means that he is not personally affected. For example, a court judge is neutral when two opposing parties appear before him, but he still takes action as the case warrants. To become completely neutral, indifferent to material activities, we should simply seek shelter at the lotus feet of the supreme neutral person. So we may also get the desire, oh, I also want to become how the Supreme Lord is neutral. I don't want to get affected by friends and enemies. I want to be equal to everyone, not get affected. Of course, action, we have to act as Prabhupada is saying, the judge takes a decision, but he's not affected by whatever the two parties, whatever is going on between the two parties. He's neutral. It's his duty to give the judgment, so he gives the judgment. So if we also desire to achieve this position, then Srila Prabhupada is saying, we take shelter of Krishna. He's a supreme neutral person. Maharaj Citraketu was advised that remaining neutral in such trying circumstances as the death of one's son is impossible. Nevertheless, since the Lord knows how to adjust everything, the best course is to depend upon him and do one's duty in devotional service to the Lord. So it's not easy. His young son has just died. It's not easy. There is so much affection for a young child. Not easy to remain neutral, not easy not to lament. It's very natural to lament. So, but what is the advice Citraketu is being given? Take shelter of Krishna. Depend on Krishna. Krishna knows. Krishna will make arrangements. He knows how to adjust the situation. So depend on Krishna, at the same time, engage in devotional service. In all circumstances, one should be undisturbed by duality, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:47. Karmani evadikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana, ma karma phala heturvur, ma te sango astva karmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. One should execute one's devotional duty, and for the results of one's actions, one should depend upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how can we remain neutral? We need to take shelter of Krishna. We need to approach him to give us strength to remain neutral in very, very difficult circumstances, because it's not possible for us. We are conditioned after all. We are in the body. We are thinking we are the body. So Citraketu is advised, take shelter of Krishna. And this is the advice to us also, because certain situations are very much beyond us. And we may become so bewildered, we don't know what's happening. We don't understand what's happening. So we are being advised to take shelter of Krishna. At the same time, continue to engage in devotional service. Did anyone
Shilpaji,
want to
what are
add
they
anything?
trying?
Yeah.
I just want to ask, what are they trying to say in this last paragraph?
That Krishna is saying
Mm,
that we have what happens is we get attached to the result of our duty. We do something, we say, I'm going to do it because I want to enjoy it in such a way. It may be our duty. But Krishna is saying, don't get attached to the result. You do your duty for my pleasure. Do whatever you are supposed to do for my pleasure. Don't get attached to the result, because we get attached to the result. He's saying, don't get attached. And so someone may say, well, Krishna is saying, don't get attached to the result, that I should not get the result. So why should I do my duty? So Krishna is also saying, never be attached to not doing your duty. So as Lord Chaitanya told the Brahman, don't leave your position. You continue doing what you're doing. Chant Hare Krishna. This is how we can understand this verse. Because the Brahman wanted to give up his family. And he wanted to go off with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, you will please me by you take care of your family, you do what you're doing, but you chant Hare Krishna and you speak to others about Krishna. Is that okay?
So this is, he's telling it to Citraketu Maharaj, right?
He's
The
telling
Harsha
Citraketu.
Shloka is telling it to
This is
Citraketu.
Prabhupada
No,
is explaining this in the
okay,
purport.
this is the explanation. Okay.
This purport,
Okay.
Prabhupada is explaining what Harshoka is saying, that as the Supreme Lord is neutral, the living entity should also become neutral, because living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So we do have this quality of being neutral, although it's minute, but it's possible because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So he's saying, don't lament. So Prabhupada is telling us how we cannot lament. Will it be possible? Only when we take shelter of Krishna will it be possible for us. Is that okay?
Yeah. That's perfect.
Oh. All right.
Perfect.
We'll stop here.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I just wanted to suggest Neha, because she missed last week's reading. Neha, you should try to listen to when Harshoka was. Okay.
I listened to all. I listened. Thank you, Deepika. I listened to the previous one, but I just missed the two of them. They are still remaining. I haven't heard.
I think so. I don't know if you have heard about the reading when Harshoka was born and how they were, doing lots of things in affection. If you read that part, then I think if you will be able to understand Bhagavad Gita's verse 2.47. Because they got attached and they were doing a lot in affection, and they were feeling that, oh, okay, now he's going to do a lot. I think if you will read those parts, you will know that
I read that with Shilpa ji. So that is not a problem, but I just had this, that why, like if he's being instructed, I just wanted to understand that how this last part, that you shouldn't on your result, how is it related to Citraketu Maharaj?
So
that why
Prabhupada
this is being said in this context.
Yeah,
Thank you so
Prabhupada
much.
is explaining in the purport.
Yeah. That's perfectly fine, Shilpa ji. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Srimad
Hare
Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur
Yeah.
Bhakta ki jai.